Alright, I got a package from a unfamiliar source, which leads me to believe this could be my package from GearBest. Okay. Alright, ski. Appears to be the makings of two videos here, so let's start with, we have this. I'm about due for a soldering iron, so it just worked out that I can test one of these guys. This, I believe, was one of the cheaper models, so I'm kind of trying to test a longevity of sorts to see how cheap you can get into soldering. Since there's more and more people getting into the hobby, more and more people want to do flywheel mods, etc. So I thought, how cheap can you get into this and still be able to do the job? Obviously, you want as good of one as you can afford, but it's like, how cheap can we go? This one, I believe, was like $3 to $5 or something, so nice. And this is the little soldering cleaner, one of these little brass balls. Just open on the bottom, does that make it easier? Ha! Do it the easy way. Many soldering kits and stuff just come with the wet sponge. They don't come with a wet sponge, but they come with a sponge you make wet, obviously. And mine still didn't work so hot, so it's like, maybe I'll try one of these and see if it's a better option. So we got a little cleaner guy, and we got a cheap soldering iron. So we'll have to see how those guys work later. Over here in the gear, part of GearBest, I decided to grab a couple pieces of potential Nerf gear, just trying to get more gear available for loaning and stuff around local little backyard things and whatnot. Again, just to see how cheap you can get into it. So we got this little pouch guy here. Oh, geez. Okay. Okay, there's apparently some kind of like a tool kit. It's got a little bunch of little loopy things in here that'd be good for fitting like screwdrivers that are much smaller than this, obviously. But as far as that's how you can't really see because it's black, but there's little elastic loops, or a little elastic strip here with little loops sewed into it. So, I mean, if you had like long pencils, perhaps. I don't know I had the stuff on the inside. When I saw the picture, I assumed it was just a solid piece, or solid pouch. And I wondered, I did some going off the dimensions listed on the website. I thought, if you could fit even like just two 12s in there, that would be pretty handy for just a quick, just a nice, easy loadout for just simple wars and stuff like that, but to where people could carry more than just, the one in the blaster and then like putting one in a back pocket or something. It is adjustable, yeah, that's right. So you have this here, which is actually kind of a cool feature because you can open it up, and apparently if you put tools and whatnot in there, then you can get to them easier. Huh. I would not need that, so I may see what I can do about picking these things out. I guess let's just see if even dimensionally you could fit two in. Maybe not so much. Yeah, that's really stressing things. Boy, you can really latch that thing on nice and snug, though. Lots of little molly loop things there. It might be better without these things in here because they do cause a bit of room. So I think it'd be close as far as like if you get rid of the loopy things on the inside, you'd be workable, but I'm just not so sure that's gonna work. So I'll experiment with this and report back later. Here we have a really like heavier dutier than I expected belt. Interesting, it's adjustable with this gargantuan Velcro. Kind of just a regular good solid latch there. There's these little guys that come with it that are like belt loops that snap with something else. Honestly not sure what these guys do because it's like a female side of the snap on both sides, and there's no, this is just the belt itself. Looks like these guys strap onto the belt and have little adjustable coupler thing with a pocket. Not sure if we can use that for our purposes, but it came with 2 of those. The belt itself seems pretty solid though, so I'm hoping I can make that work with belt compatible mag holders perhaps, and maybe a few other things like that. So I'll see what the capabilities are of this piece as well, and we'll check with you guys later. Alright, I had a chance over the last couple of weeks, off and on, to play with these a little bit, kind of get a feel for them. And while the size of the soldering iron and the shape of the tip and all that is really nice, after you plug it in, the bad thing is it takes like 10 minutes before you can actually use it. I plugged it in, set a timer, and it was about 5 minutes almost before it was even hot enough to like sizzle and melt the flux. It was at least 10 minutes before it would actually melt the solder as it sits. Sometimes after it's cooled and you're trying to desolder wires or solder that's on wire, sometimes it's a little harder to. And this, holding it on there, you really had to hold it on for a long time to get the solder to melt enough to pull the wires off. And I was thinking, well, why the heck is this thing so slow and cool and everything? Because it's not like we're really asking a lot of it, it's just very, very small wire. And I was looking, and ever so subtly, you can see where it says 220 volt, 60 watt. And I realized, oh, well, if this is a 220 volt requirement, then that complicates things because I don't have 220 power in an outlet like that. So I would assume that if you have double the power coming to it, it would heat up quicker, hopefully, and maybe be a little more consistent. Otherwise, it's not really usable. And I was kind of bummed out at first because I wasn't really able to give this a proper review under the best circumstances. But I will say that it was a mistake made on my part because I was going through the list, or going through the website trying to find a relatively cheap, easily accessible soldering iron, and acting as if anybody else who is trying to get in to some cheap soldering equipment. And so I guess this would be a mistake that would be easy to make for somebody else as well. So I would take that as a sacrifice to help you guys be further aware to look, since this is I guess international customer base, I guess, or international company, that there is different voltage requirements in different countries and stuff. So this model in particular is a 220 volt. You'd want a 110 if you're in the States. So the thing seemed to function okay overall. Like I said, the little LED thing came on, it heated up, but due to a mistake on my part, I don't have the requirements to really use it at its full potential. So a bit of a learning experience more than anything, but it is functional, and one would assume that the iron itself would last under the proper power. It does have a removable tip, which is nice. I believe that is a fairly standard size as well, so that's a bonus. So if you happen to have 220 coming out of your wall and you want a soldering iron, I can go ahead and leave the buying information for you. It is a comfortable and well-balanced iron, so it's not like some of them that are awkwardly large or misbalanced or whatever, so it does have a good feel. And so assuming that it works appropriately under the right power, then I would say that's an okay one. I cannot vouch for its longevity though, unfortunately. However, it does seem to be built well. The plastic does feel nice. The material itself feels pretty good. So I cannot really offer an objective opinion beyond that. However, this little thing, I was kind of surprised at. I know it's just a soldering iron cleaner thing, but I tried testing it with this, and this didn't really get dirty enough to actually, test it to its full potential. But I did use my nasty old workhorse soldering iron that I actually got used in a pile of junk, other parts and stuff that I can't identify, and the tip was getting so bad that it wasn't working anymore, and I was like, you know what the heck, I'll give it a shot. And shoved the dude in there a little bit, splashed it around, had a good old time, and it brought the tip back to where it's actually in a usable condition now. And so I was actually kind of surprised, and I was like, well shoot, it's just this little copper dude. So I was able to use this for a couple of projects, and kept doing a little poker deal, and it kept the little dude clean. So I was kind of pleasantly surprised there. It's just a little copper scrubber pad looking thing, and but hey, it works. It does what it's supposed to, and that's cool. And it was actually reasonably priced. I wasn't sure what to expect, but you know how cheap I am, and so it was one of those where it's like, well, shoot, that's not a bad deal if it works. And by George, it does. So I'll go ahead and make sure I put that information below as well. If you have either no way to clean your soldering iron at all, or if you're using the wet sponge deal, I was really surprised at how effective this guy was, even not only keeping a soldering iron clean, but also bringing back a really, really nasty one. So yeah, I'll go ahead and put that information in there as well. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to have that full, thorough review of the products that I usually like to do, but under the circumstances, this was about as gives you about as much information as I think you're going to need. All right, taking a look at a few pieces from GearBest in their gear part of things, I guess. Just kind of a simple, well, I got a belt and a kind of a interesting pouch thing here. The belt itself is a rather stiff and rather thick piece with the it adjusts on both sides, and it's basically a gigantic Velcro belt that you just adjust it wherever you want. This is the scratchy side, and this is the fuzzy, happy side. And it's the build quality seems to be pretty nice. The buckle itself is rather nice and locks in very positively, but it's not one of those that you really have to force to get off. It's very smooth, operates very smoothly, very happily. However, the size is rather conservative. In order for it to fit my body, I had to bring it back to pretty, to where it doesn't have a whole lot of overlap. And so, me being a much larger than average dude, would say that if you are of a healthy size, then I would say this probably would not fit, or you'd be, I think, pushing your limits a little bit on it. But if you are more of a average or a smaller size, then this should not be an issue at all. Like I said, build quality seems to be just fine. Everything else seems to hold up quite well. It's nice having a nice, solid construction instead of being kind of floppy. That way, if you strap stuff on, then it's going to hold its shape and hold its orientation pretty well, and it's not going to want to, fold over or anything very well. It does come with two of these little pockety things that I can only assume are for something more related to real steel, airsoft, or something like that. But it is a cute little sideways mounted pocket thing with a kind of somewhat adjustable latch. The closest thing I could figure for our applications would be if you needed to store a lipo somewhere on your body, relatively easily accessible, but didn't want to have it just jumping around in your regular pouch or pocket or something like that. So that would work, I reckon, if you want to just swing those to the back or something. Just, you get your buckle here, slide those suckers to the back somewhere, and keep them out of the way. Otherwise, I don't know if they would serve us any purposes. I would probably not use those at all. They also come with these things, which don't actually fit on there, and I'm not sure what they do. They have the female side of the snappy all the way on both sides, so I assume there's some corresponding accessories that those work with, but there again, I don't know how to use those, so if you happen to know, then good on you. So I'm not too concerned with that. But the belt seems like a solid buy. If you need something that's just a utility, kind of just a solid belt to mount stuff on, it doesn't have the MOLLE strips or anything on it. It's just a belt for belt's sake, for strapping stuff on. You'd have to have some Mondo belt loops if you want to use this to hold your pants up, but if you just want to strap gear to it, then I think that'll do the trick for you. Now this cute little pouch, I was looking at dimensions on the website, and I thought, that should fit magazines, I'm hoping. But the thing with this is that it had all these little Velcro, or not Velcro, these elastic strips inside for holding tools or whatever the heck it was. So I ended up cutting those all out, and what I'm left with is just smooth on both sides. You do have this little flap thing here that still goes over the top, and if you take 12-round magazines, they do fit just fine in there, and you can stretch this over, and it overlaps about a ½ inch, which is secure enough for keeping them from falling out or keeping junk out of there. It does have this nice tab, so you can just grab it, pop it open just fine. This does open it up a little bit this far, so you can grab your stuff out easier, which that works out pretty excellently. So this would be definitely would work for that quite well. It does have a very, very solid MOLLE panel thing on the back. 1, 2, 3. So that thing will lock in like on a vest or something. It'll lock in and not have any issues with it moving around. This is also compatible with 18s, however, they do stick out the top, so you would not be able to use the cover. I've considered even taking a couple of these little guys here and adding them to the top, just enough to hold that a little bit and give a little more support for 18s, but even as they are, it's still pretty solid. They're not going to jump out unless you're like rolling around and doing a lot of crazy jumping and stuff, but as far as more reasonable just running around, they're not going to come out, yet they still jump out just fine. I can't remember the price of these offhand, but I remember at the time saying, hey, these if these do work, then that's not a bad price at all. It is a kind of versatile little pouch thing, you know, that it is, you know, if you want to leave little elastics in there, then you can put tools or whatever in there and have that kind of pouch thing. You can open it up, you can adjust these a little bit. It's not supposed to be adjustable, but it kind of works just because it is openable, so you can spread it open. But if you want a little more snug or a little less snug, you can adjust that accordingly. But kind of a nifty little pouch, and like I said, as I recall, reasonably priced. I'll post the price up here while I'm talking, and then make a note if I was lying or not. But no, kind of a nice little pouch thing. It's not one of those where it's a must-buy, but if this, you know, if you are looking for something to, you know, just a MOLLE mounted pouch thing to throw a couple magazines in, like I said, on a vest or something like that, then I think that would be pretty slick. It, as far as usability, it's, you know, secure, but it's not hard to get into or anything. Just a pair of mags. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and put the buying information for those as well in the description. But no, as far as the build quality, the stitching seems to be pretty solid, especially given the price. The snaps are nice and positive. Sometimes cheaper snaps, you don't really have that nice satisfying snap. You kind of wonder how snappy they are. It is pretty solid, but it's not one of those where it snaps on and you have a heck of a time getting them off. But no, stitching all seems to be pretty solid for the most part. There's a couple little strings here and there that aren't stitches coming loose. It's just loose ends and all that. Velcro is nice and positive. There again, sometimes cheap Velcro doesn't really Velcro very well, but no, it seems solid for the price. It seems it's a nice solid little pouch. So yeah, if you think that's going to work for you and do what you need it to do, then I would say it's well worth it. But if you don't necessarily need it, I would say don't necessarily go out and run out and buy it. So no, like I said, interesting little pieces. Not, you know, more niche based. One of those, if it's like, if this will do the job that you need it to do, then I think it'll do a fine job at it, but it's not necessarily a must-buy. So, if you have any further questions about application or anything, or construction or whatever, go ahead and leave them in the comment section below, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. And until next time, wishing blue skies and green lights to you and yours, and may all your troubles be teeny weeny ones.